I'm representing you guys, the other one,
Yeah, we got everything going.
and then of course, I got my own thing in the background, so it's cool.
You guys too. All right. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Titan Performance Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Trent, today. The other host, obviously, Mike Edwards. And our guest today, Kevin Edgerton. I'm the only person that can't grow a beard like a real man on the podcast today, obviously, because I was Air Force and these two guys are Army. Kev, welcome to the podcast, brother. How you doing?
Good, Trent. How you doing?
You know, it's another beautiful day, San Antonio traffic and all that. So if I seem a little out of breath, it's because I don't listen to people like you, human performance experts, when it comes to the type of conditioning I should be doing as an older guy. Kev, if you don't mind, let's start a little bit with your background within reason, and we'll kind of tell everybody how we got here, and then we can talk about human performance and all that other fun stuff.
Cool. So, background: joined the Army in 1987, a long time ago. First duty station was in Germany. The wall was still up, and I was there when it came down. Desert Shield, Desert Storm popped off. Got out 4 months after it ended. Went to college. Went to Indiana University. New national champs, first time ever. So had to put that plug in there. Uh, didn't work out. College didn't work out for me. So rejoined the Army. Active duty, was at Hood for 6 god awful years. And joined back up, I had 3 goals in life to do. One was to go SF. One was to become an officer. I don't know why the second one was to become an officer. And then the third one was to become a PA. I knocked out 2 of the 3. Um, Became an SF guy, even became an SF officer, retired at that. 26 years, was been all over Southeast Asia. I was in first group as an operator. I was in 10th group as a camo with a long tab, second lieutenant, was in OEF 3 with 3rd Battalion, 10th Special Forces Group, with probably the best battalion at that time ever that I've ever worked with, which Dorsey Rogers was the battalion commander. Tovo was the group commander, a couple of generals now. And got out in June 2014, retired. Then October 2014, picked up, I was a head strength conditioning coach for the 342nd Battlefield Airman Training Squadron before it switched over to the Special Warfare wing that it is now. And I did 7.5 years. 4 years ago, I think it's 5 years ago now, I stepped away and do 18 Alpha Fitness solely to get guys ready for selection. And then for the older guys that's out there, just longevity of life.
Nice. I think it's interesting between you two. You both were in the regular Army first, and I know Mike, you talked about wanting to go SF initially, ended up in the Rangers. But is the regular Army really that bad, y'all? That going Ranger SF is the way to go?
Yeah,
Yes,
dude.
there's not,
Yeah, I would never
bro.
want to be in the regular army. And dudes, I see dudes at the end of their career in the Ranger Regiment and stuff that are like, hey man, like I'm an E9, but they don't want me to be a battalion CSM, and them dudes are just gonna find a way to bail out or go somewhere else because they just don't want to go. It's just hard once you've lived that lifestyle to go back to that. People think the Ranger Regiment's a lot like regular army, but it's in no way, shape, or form like it. Believe it or not.
Yeah,
Kev, why do you hate the regular Army so much?
I was at Fort Hood and did 6 NTC rotations. Every year we started with squad sticks, platoon sticks, company sticks, battalion sticks, brigade sticks, and then off to NTC every year like clockwork. That was the rotation. Shoot me in the face to do that shit all over again. It was god awful. And I was heavy mechanized too, which even makes it worse because we were out there pounding the crap out of it because I was a 12 Bravo building minefields. Or then our other job was to clear minefields. So I was going to die either way if we ever had to clear minefields.
Might
And
as well
so
go
I
be a
was
Green Beret.
might as well become a Green Beret. I was in Bosnia. Well, I had already got selected, and then I got to go to Bosnia in first cap because I broke my ankle waiting to get rehabbed up. But man, I seen the green. They were walking around in patrol caps. I'm in a old school Vietnam flak vest and helmet on. Then that flak vest wasn't going to stop shit. in 1998, bro. Not a damn thing was a flak vest gonna stop anything. It's a god awful piece of equipment in the world. And then we had to wear it everywhere, even on base, not only off base. You had to wear it anytime you came out of the building. You had to wear your helmet and your flak vest everywhere in Tulsa, Maine. Again, first calf, I would start a fucking horrible.
I forgot about that suck. Because I spent my first 2 years or so in third ID on Kelly Hill, Fort Benning, Georgia. It's the same thing, dude. Flak vest, freaking helmet. But here's with us, we had miles, right? The miles gear
Oh yeah,
had to be on at all times. It was our garrison uniform. Helmet with miles gear, LC with miles gear, always. We always wore miles gear. It sucked. And then I did a year in Korea, and then 9/11 happened while I was over there. I was like, I hated the regular Army so bad, I was getting out. I was like, I'm done. And then 9/11 happened, and ended up re-enlisted and staying in, going to special operations.
Well, thank goodness for small America. I mean, 9/11 was awful, but I'm glad you stuck around and did what you did. Kevin, I've heard it before. Obviously, we worked together back in the day, and some of the best times of my life, learning a lot from you. But for your story in particular, the how long it took you to get through selection, and like the amount of times it would have, in my mind, made more sense to quit than just keep going on, and all the obstacles that were thrown up in your way. Because people are like, oh, like you go to selection, it's going to be easy. like I'm physically prepared. I don't think everybody's ready for like some of the random things that could happen along the way, and really how much perseverance it takes especially for, in your case, to get that green beret and to finally get on team.
well, that's gonna be an even longer story than the intro. So went to selection my first time in '95, prepared miserably for it, trained with the wrong ruck, walked on concrete, got to Fort Bragg and found out that there was nothing but sand at Camp McCall. So my feet were destroyed. 10 days into it, went and seen the doc. He took x-rays of my feet, and the old guys will be like, oh, everybody had grade 4 stress fractures and every metatarsal on both feet. That's what I had. And I asked the doc, he's like, you can keep on going or you come back in a year. And I was like, what would you do, doc? He's like, I'd come back in a year, because if you don't, you're going to be hard broke, and you're going to be just on a medical profile for about a year, because you're going to be so messed up. So came back in a year, trained right, got a different rug, trained up with the old Alice pack that sucks, because what I trained up with was what I call the Cadillac, and the fucking green, the Alice pack is called the Pinto, in my opinion. That thing's the worst thing to drive them shoulder blades and pull you back. So went back in '96, got selected, was great. 6 months later, I was finally leaving Fort Hood, told everybody in my chain of command, you know what I mean? F you. I'm never coming back to this place. I can't stand Fort Hood. Well, we got the Benning on my fourth jump. It was a night jump, and I heard a snap, crackle, pop on my left ankle, broke it, and it's like, God bless it. But the cadre were like, hey, just go up to Bragg in 6 months. You can take your jump. You know what I mean? That's your next duty assignment. It should be no problem. So I drive up to Bragg, sign in. I was going to be in 18 Delta at the time. The compound was a new brand, it was really new. I think we're within a year. It's old as shit now, because that was back in '96. So, I got a knock on the door from a cadre, and he's like, you go see this lady at Bryant Hall. And I went into the office, and I was like, hey, I'm here. She's like, oh, I know who you are. She's like, I got some bad news, and I got worse news. Really? I got bad news and worse news. She's like, the bad news is you can't start the Q course. So I'm like, yeah, I'm in a cast in my left ankle. She's like, the worst news is you got to go back to Fort Hood. And I think I started crying right there, because she said, the reason you got to go back to Fort Hood is because you're TDY en route from one school to another. You have to successfully complete the one school before you can start the next school. And since I didn't complete it, you have to go back to your home duty station. You can't stay there at Fort Bragg and go to the 82nd and make your fifth jump within 6 months. So I went back to Fort Hood, Had 2 operations on my left
Good.
ankle.
What
One
was
to
that
put
like
in
when
the
you get back?
plate.
Was it like, oh, hey, fellas, remember how I said I was never coming back here? Like,
Yeah, yeah, it was a little humbling experience, but there was no motherfucking way that's going to stop me from not getting back. It was that was not even a thing on my radar. I was going to get rehab and get back into it as fast as I possibly could. But I had 2 surgeries. So the first surgery you get in, okay, they put a plate in there with 8 screws. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now and I was like, hey, I'm ready to go. And they're like, you got hardware in your body. It's got to come out before you go back to airborne school because you're not airborne qualified. If you're already airborne qualified and you continue to jump, you're fine. But if you're going to airborne school and you're not airborne qualified, you can't have hardware in your body. So I was like, well, fuck. So I had to have the hardware removed. And about a year later, uh, started the Q course, which is in like 99. Yeah, the end of 99. And I finished up the Q in like 2000 after 9/11 happened. Finished up the Q uh, at the end. So it was a long and arduous journey for this guy to make. But those trials and tribulations, I think, are who defined who I am.
yeah. And then is that when? So you got hurt? All those other things. You were going to be in Delta. You became an Echo, right? Is that because
Yeah.
like your slot got lost? And I know the Delta pipeline is like really in depth. You
Really
know.
long. Yeah, yeah. No, no. So I switched to an Echo on my own accord because I was in the bonus category. There's the A, B, and C, and since I'd had so many years in, I was a C, and I wouldn't have been able to get another bonus if I started the Q course. And they're like, "Well, if you become an Echo, you can get this whopping $2,500 bonus. If you switch over." And I was like, "Sign me up." And it's like that was probably one of the worst mistakes I ever made was to become a I wouldn't say mistake, but I did it for the money, like I did everything else, and it didn't,
Yeah.
Echo's not that hard. But besides Morse code, I had to do Morse code back in the day before they canceled that too. So that was a humbling experience if you never shot out and received 1313 in Morse code.
I have no idea what you just said to me. Yeah.
Really, you don't know what Morse code is?
Oh,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
do.
I know
One
what
of
Morse
my
code is.
So
one of
you got to be able to
Yeah.
tap that out 13 characters per minute, and then be able to receive those same 13 characters per minute. And it's not easy by no means. And then about 18 months after I was finished it, then they canceled. They don't do it no more. They haven't done it since. So
Jeez, Mike, why did you have to learn Morse code?
what's up?
Did you have to learn Morse code too? I
you
think you were
broke
saying
up.
that. Oh, jeez. Maybe
Sorry, I think
am
we
I the
lost you there
problem?
for a second, Trent.
Yeah. Am I back now?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got you.
you're back.
That was weird. It seemed like you said you would learn Morse code too, and maybe I missed the answer because I'm playing Wi-Fi games today.
No, no, I was just saying I've heard about that. So one of my ranger buddies who went through selection and OTC with me for the special mission unit, he had gone to SF and did the pipeline and did all the Morse code stuff too, and he told me about it. That's what he started off. That dude, similar to you, had like an arduous life. He went through SF selection, then went through CAG selection, made it all the way through the end of OTC, got dropped at the end, went to TZ selection, made it all the way to the end of OTC, got dropped, and then went all the way through our selection too. So, and he's the one that told me about the tap stuff or the Morse code. I'm like, man,
Morse
that
code.
sounds crazy.
Yeah. And we had two D boys in my Echo course because they had to pick up that MOS to get promoted. And like after 9/11 happened, like a couple of days later, they were gone. They were gone.
Yeah.
Choo! They were.
Things that we valued that we wanted you to get. Yeah, we don't care anymore. Like, let's go,
Yeah, we
boys.
don't care. Yeah, they had to go.
Yep.
What? So for both of you, like, so both of you were in the army and you had to train up for these different selections. I don't think people fully appreciate what that means to have like a job, to be in the army, and then to be surrounded by a culture of people that may or may not be supportive of you, and have misconceptions of what you're trying to do with the rest of your life. Like what were the things that you focused on to get ready for those selections, and what was it like trying to do that within the structure of the regular Army?
Well, for myself, all my physical training had to happen after work, and after that morning, the god awful PT session that we used to have running in Fort Hood, that would ran at like a 10-minute pace, was just slow and. And then you have a first sergeant that comes with the new push-up thing called the Cobra, where your hips got to stay on the ground and you just push your upper body in a diamond position. Tricep.
What?
It's really, yes, it's really hard if you keep your hips down and just push up your upper body, but it destroys your triceps. And he could do like 1,000 of these things. So you just got different. It was just push up, sit up, run. No method or methodology of how they're doing everyday PT in the Army. And in the Army, every day at 0630, you will be doing PT, unlike the Air Force.
What are you talking about? We're PTing all the time. We have to
No,
walk
I'm not
into
talking.
Starbucks.
I'm not
Walk into
talking about
Starbucks and
special
put in our
warfare
order.
people.
And then we have to walk out of Starbucks. That's Air Force PT in the morning. Sometimes, if you're in a 5-star hotel, they don't actually deliver the food to your room. You have to go down for the continental breakfast or whatever. It's really inconvenient. I don't think you appreciate how hard it is to be in the Army.
I'm not talking about those special warfare guys. I'm just talking about all those support guys that when I used to work there, I could not believe that, Mike, these guys were not coming into work until 9 or 10 o'clock every day and didn't do a lick of PT at all, ever.
Dang, that is nuts. So,
Mike, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was wondering how your experience was different. I have more questions about like being in the Army, trying to train up to go somewhere else. Like, did you get any pushback from people or anything else like that? Because I don't know, even from my side, when I was trying to go to to be a special nerd instead of a regular nerd, people gave me a fair amount of crap about it.
Yeah, I mean, there was always, dissenters out there that were like, "Ah, man, you don't want to go there. Like, this is where it is. The core is the Army, man. You want to be here in the Army." You know what I mean? Like, I had people like First Sergeants and people like that try to convince me of that stuff, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Because just like you, Kevin, I was appalled at the PT. Like, I came in the military, I thought I was going to be a killing machine. I thought I was going to be in good shape. I thought I was going to be shooting guns, blowing stuff up. And I thought the infantry did that, right? But here I was in the infantry, in the regular Army infantry, and I was not doing that stuff. I was a glorified janitor, yard man, trash pickup guy, vehicle mechanic, maintenance guy, toilet cleaner guy. And so I was surprised. There was a lot of people that tried to talk me out of leaving that. But like you, it's like I wanted to start a pistol being there, man. So I just had to get out. And that's why, like, originally I was going to go SF. And we talked about that a little bit earlier. So when I was in 3rd ID, I took the PT test and everything, had a contract to go to SF. That's what I always want to do. My dad encouraged me to do that. Didn't even know what a Ranger was. And so then all of a sudden I got orders to Korea. And I was like, "What's up, SF dudes? Can you get me out of these orders?" They were like, "No, we can't touch you." I was like, "Are you serious?" So I go to Korea, and then I find out, I bump into a Ranger over there, and he's like, "Dude, you should have went to the Ranger Regiment. They could have pulled you from those orders because they're a priority unit." And I was like, "What? I did not even know that." So then I started looking into the Ranger Regiment, ended up going there. But yeah, there was always dissenters, man, that wanted to keep you from doing it, man. My path wasn't near as arduous as yours, but it still had some hiccups along the way.
Yeah, like before I left for the second time to go, my sergeant major sat me down, and he was Ranger Tab too. This guy was a 12 Bravo Ranger Tab, there aren't too many 12 Bravo Ranger Tabs at the time. And he's like, "You're not gonna fucking make it." And I was like, looked at him, and I was like, I kind of doubt that, bud. You know what I mean? It was just, they just didn't want me to go because they wanted me to stay at Fort Hood, be able to, still buff the floors, make sure them toilets were clean, supervise people, because I'm at E6 at this time, to make sure that the privates did everything that they could do, because, I was on time. I could PT to death. I knew how to write a counseling statement, which isn't hard stuff, but, just as long as you're on time and do the right things, you're going to get promoted in the Army. And when he told me that, I was like, "Oh, okay." But the funny thing is, I got after being in group as an 18 Echo, went to OCS, and when I'm at the chemical course at Fort Leonard Wood, He is the sergeant major of the combat engineers for the 2-star. And I was walking past and I seen his picture on a damn board, and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna go knock on that motherfucker's door. And I knocked on his door in the office, and I went and I confronted him, and I'm a second lieutenant with a
You?
long tab. Yes, I went to that
You're very
motherfucker and confronted him. He
non-confrontational,
said,
Kevin. I don't know if people know this
never.
about you. Not.
Yes. Yeah. I went and talked, you know what I mean? And he's like, oh, I was doing it to motivate you to make sure you got through there. And I was like, the fuck you did. No.
Well, another thing too and you were probably in that boat, as was I. When I wanted to leave the regular Army and go special operations, I was the PT stud. And most of the dudes that want to go to SOF, they're outperforming everybody in PT. They know their stuff. They got the 7-8 memorized. You know what I mean? They're hard chargers. And so these units don't want to let them go. Like, I was the dude that was carrying the battalion colors on every run because I could do 10 miles and keep up with everybody with the flag. You know what I mean? Because I was like you, I was a big time runner. But yeah, they don't want to lose those guys, man. And I'm sure that was the case with you and a lot of the guys you saw leave as well. They just want to hold you back because you're their best dude. They're giving you up to go to a unit where you're going to show up and be, an average guy, or maybe better than average, but it's a different place.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think people track that too. Like, that's interesting because historically speaking, the military was not really huge on special operations. People want to it's easy to think of it now and be like, oh, the military loves special. Like, they still don't love special operations because of that, because it's like a talent, and they get the talent sucked out of their units to go do these other things, or guys want to go do these other things. And I think that's kind of a bad attitude on their part, because if you just develop your people correctly and you have cool jobs, then don't worry about it. But like, I never felt like I was like, better than anybody else that I left to go the other side. It's just I was different. I was trying to find the place where I fit, and I finally found the place that I fit. And I think, Kevin, it's interesting to me that you wanted to be a Green Beret, and then an officer, and then a PA. So like, were you already starting that, like, human performance research, all that other stuff, even way back then before you even, put the Green Beret on?
So when I was going to IU, I was going to school to become a nurse, because when I had that break in service 3 days after when I was out, my dad had his first heart attack at 48 years old. And, I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. And there was a male nurse that took care of my dad, and me and him, and my dad was like, hey, you might want to talk to this guy and see what what the path is. And we talked, and I was like, oh, that seems pretty cool. So, I took all the medical education, the human anatomy, physiology, chemistry, all the base pre-med courses per se. So, and then then the human performance stuff started coming along when I was after I got injured and I was starting to train myself up. I became a personal trainer as well way back in the day, in '98. Before, just because we only had men's health and muscle and fitness magazine, man. That's all we used. I used to read the shit out of them things. We didn't have the internet too. You got to remember, there was no internet. You didn't have access to the whole world and everything within seconds in your pocket. You had to go research it and do it.
Yeah, that's the way I was. I grew up in the regular Army. A lot of people don't realize the PT program sucks so bad that if you want to be a squared away dude, you're PTing your butt off after work all the time. Like, I'd be running in the morning before PT and working out in the afternoon after PT. And I had a group of dudes, same thing. We looked at muscle and fitness, and I was studying just like you to be a personal trainer as well, because I wanted to train myself for one. But that came in handy. But I'm curious, Kevin, what made you so interested in the medical aspect of it? And the reason I asked this question, because I was very interested in that too. When I was planning on going to SF, I wanted to be an 18 Delta. And then when I went in the military, even in the Ranger Regiment, I did all the advanced medical training that I could do as a non-medic. Like, I've done live tissue, something we had to as part of our pipeline. But I really enjoyed the medical stuff. I love shooting guns and killing bad guys too, but I thought it was really cool to be able to help somebody and fix somebody and save a life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the same sentiment that I have. It's cool that be able to fix somebody, and that's after seeing what that guy did for my dad. That's that whole background of how you just take care of that person, and then you find out that, oh shit, there's how the Krebs cycle works. and then you get it into the performance side. I even take it a step farther, as Trent knows, I also do soft tissue stuff on the side and help guys, get back, from injury as well. And I really enjoy that. One thing I don't like, the reason I didn't go the PA route is I don't like just to give a piece of medicine to fix your little scratch in your getting your sand out, right? I think you can do you can move that to get that sand out, better than you can just taking a piece of something foreign to your body.
Yeah, brother. And here's the thing too. In the modern world, people are waking up to this. That a lot of the medicine and the pharmaceuticals that we're taking is actually poisoning our bodies. It's compounding issues on top of compounding issues, causing hereditary things and things of that nature, that perpetuate problems on down the road. So I think that's a great aspect to it, and it's the way that we all should live.
Yeah, it should.
All natural.
And then with all the new stuff too, with these peptides that's out there, and some, all that. If you're not active duty and you're older gentlemen, if you're not looking into how to, walk around daily being without pain, I think you should do a little bit more research.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I'll back that too. I'm on peptides. I take BPC 157, TB 500. I've taken several other ones, copper, different other ones as well, MOTS-C and things of that nature. You're right. As you're older, it kind of helps your body perform better and heal better. And like you said, that's the main reason I do physical fitness 6 days a week as I do, is just so I can function. And I used to do a little tip videos for like older guys too. I'm like, just because you were back in the day like me, you had 225 on the bar, repping it for 35 reps on your warm-up set. You're 50 now, bro. Like, you can't be doing that. I don't care how big and strong your muscles still look. You ain't lifting that heavy weight like that. You got to warm up. You got to do full range of motion. Range of motion is key. So, and I know you.
Yes.
What do you have to say about that as far as like aging men like us? What tips would you have for them to stay able to perform?
So take every joint in your body through a full range of motion every day. And I do that, and Trent knows it very well. It takes me about 10 minutes. I've had him we've done some videos together, and Trent is like the most unflexible person, and I'm sure out of the three of us. And it's simple stuff. Like today, I went and played tennis for an hour because I got a tournament this weekend. I'm playing a match tomorrow night and Saturday and Sunday. And when I got back, all I did like 45 minutes of stretching. You know what I mean? Taking a joint through, I got a box back there behind me, right? And putting my foot up there and just taking my hip through a range of motion off of it. Taking every joint, my ankles, because your feet get pounding, playing tennis, going back and forth. So I make sure that those are in, working 360. And then when I finished up today, I got in the cold tub and took a shower and hopped on this thing. You just got to take care of yourself.
So you think the tennis was the only thing that messed with your ankles?
Oh no, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, I just take, that my ankle is still jacked up from that jump, that one. And then, I'm sure you've had a couple jumps. This one, I got a fake disc between C5 and C6 from a jump in Australia. I don't know what the hell happened. I woke up. Yeah, you too? See?
Yeah, I've been fused, and that's all the free fall jumps, man. But yeah, no, I was just joking. It was funny that you said the tennis, messes with your ankles. I'm like, what about all the ruck marching and the jumping?
Oh yeah, of course. And one thing I wish I had known how to take my joints to a full range of motion back in the day. I didn't know how to do that. That wasn't, mobility was not part of our repertoire back then. It was like you said. It was if you couldn't get on my bench if you couldn't rep out 225. If you couldn't, there was no need for you to even get on my bench because we're going up from here from 225.
Yeah.
It's not going down. We're going up to probably like 345 to 355. And so there's no need for you to even get on here because you're just wasting my time. But again, we barely, we did before each workout. Never took a joint to a full range of motion until about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I try not to tell Kevin that I actually incorporated a bunch of the stuff that he showed me into my routine, but it is super helpful. Like I have like really tight shoulder issues, and I do like those shoulder rotations and all the other stuff. But Mike, dude, we were doing this video, and I was like, I'm not gonna cuss, right? I was trying to be like super clean in this video where Kevin was rolling me through like these like stretches, not stretches, but these mobility workouts that he was doing. And bro, when my glute cramped up, I'm not a cramper. Like I never cramped from like dehydration or any of the other stuff in my entire career. Bro, I failed miserably at my task of not cussing in that video because like it was. I mean, it's just something that I never had done. But like, especially like I'm not, I'm whatever. I'm in my 40s now, but it's like as you get older, like working through that stuff and using that and working it into your workouts, right? Just to maintain that motion. Like motion is life. Kevin, I do some of that stuff that you showed me. I promise. I was actually doing like the wrist one today while I was in the gym, and I was like, I hope Kevin never sees this so that he doesn't know that he's right about everything.
I am right. Hey, did you get that? Yeah, you guys need to. We need to just cut the video off the rest of the time.
Yeah, for people that don't know, it's hard for me to admit when other people are right and I'm not. I think I'm super smart. Kevin, I think one of the coolest things about your story too is like, so you did like the whole Green Beret thing. You became an alpha. That's your company, 18 Alpha Fitness, for anybody that's interested. If you're only listening to this, but like when you went over to the Air Force side, I think one of the really cool things is you got to see. Not, you worked on the Green Beret side, but then to see the Air Force guys on the other side, was there anything you learned through that process about, anything that those guys need to do different or just honing your craft a little bit as when it came to like human performance, mobility, and like the soft tissue stuff? Like you worked on me when I was there to help me out with a few of those things. What was that experience like coming to the other side, outside of like the administrivia stuff that we can talk about, later?
Yeah, so it was. You got. We got to get some background history here.
Okay.
When I first got into that position as the 342nd human performance head motherfucker in charge, right? And that's how I'm putting it down. So everybody else in the special warfare community that will listen to this, I was the man in charge, right? And it was my program to take it from where it was to the future. And before it grew into this astronomical piece of shit that I think it is now, I got to work with guys day in and day out and know and learn, not just from myself, but from them, what actually worked. Because back when I first got there, I think the battle was running 4 to 5 PT sessions a day on these guys, and that was what just the volume was way too much. And when I first got there, I was I was like, hey, I'm gonna observe for about 2 weeks and stuff and see before I come in and change anything. Well, Mike, within 24 hours, I came back and I was like, we're not doing that. That's not happening no more. We are not working out 4 or 5 times a day. We're going to run 3 times a week, swim twice a week, and then we'll lift in the afternoons 3 times a week, and then 2 times a week we'll do a mobility. But we're not going to, they were trying to get 8 hours of human performance in all day long, every day. And I was like, that's ridiculous. You're going to just kill, they're going to kill, the guys were getting broke off. Broke off. And so we changed, just changed up the flow. Nothing on it because there was nobody there that was a human. They said they had hired a human performance guy, but I think he just had his personal training certification, had never done anything, and evidently he wore a belt because his back was all jacked up. So he's never done no special operations, no human performance type stuff. So, had to dial it back and start off slow, and then I had to test a lot of stuff as well when I was there. So some things didn't work, like handstand push-ups. Not a good idea for new recruits that don't know how to even extend and hold out their arms. People just don't know how to flip up over on their head, because I was a CrossFit 2, level 2 coach. So handstand push-ups for me is easy, but for the rest of the population that's never flipped up before, or try to, walk on their hands. I don't know what this world is coming to when you don't try to learn how to walk on your hands, but that's the way, it's the computer and phone thing, because they don't want to test themselves. But you know what I mean? So you just learn and, change that. And then, we had a great people that would come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It was Jen, when we had the physical therapist. And the way I got into the massage stuff is I asked Jen, I was like, hey, how can I help you guys help these students? And they're like, well, if you became a licensed massage therapist, that'd be great. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did that after work on my own time and my own dime. For 6 months, I became a licensed massage therapist so I can actually help the students as well. And then, you fast forward 18 months and the whole Air Force, with one thing that they'll change in the Air Force, they'll change stuff like tomorrow if they can. That doesn't happen in the Army because, in the Army, you're going to plan that shit out. Uh, Not in the Air Force, man. They'll throw something on the doggone board and be like, done, let's do it right now. And it's execution time. And then there's
We're
there's
fun,
no
man.
military
We're
decision,
fun.
no military decision-making process, no steps on taking stuff. I'm dead serious, man. It's the craziest stuff. Like they came to me and they're like, hey, we're going to build this course. And Trent was in like the second guy in charge of this course. It was prep. And they're like, hey, we're gonna go up to the Great Lakes. The Navy SEALs do it. The Navy SEALs do this preparatory course. And so I was like, cool. So I go up there, boom, we got around, I'm checking out all the human performance stuff. I'm taking notes. I got all my stuff back. Monday morning, I come into the office. I come in and into our classroom because I thinking that like the whole staff is going to come and we're going to start doing military decision making process because shit, I'm an expert at military decision making process because I've done so many goddamn full mission profiles. It'll make your fucking head spin. And so I'm like, hey, I get in there and I start doing my implied task, specified task boards on my butcher block. I got the mission statement, I got the intent stuff, nothing on it yet. I just got the stuff ready to go. And the sergeant major that comes in, that's in charge, he's like, what are you doing? I was like, we're about to develop this course, bro. We're going to do some military decision making to see how we're going to run this course. And he's like, nah, we don't need that. I got it all in my head. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, no, I got it all in my head. I got it. I folded up my battle, my military decision-making book, closed my book, went back to my office, and that's on, It's like, cool. And again, throwing darts at the board. And they did that for the next 3 years, and just kept on throwing darts. But they got the money, man. They were throwing so much money at that stuff, it'd make your head spin. But if they had actually sat down and fucking did a whole mission profile, a military decision-making process, that shit would have clocked off. It would have never changed. And it's changed probably 4 or 5 times now.
More than
Man.
that. Yeah.
More than that, Trent?
Yeah, it's changed.
more than that.
They're still standing up the new way of doing business over there. But like,
Right.
I will say, in that process, the Navy SEAL prep course was they spent 10 years perfecting that thing, and that is actually
Right.
as much smack as I talk about the SEALs. Their prep course up at Great Lakes is phenomenal. The way that they run that.
Yeah, I thought that's what we were going to do when we got back.
Yeah. So Mike, if you're not tracking, the Air Force is a little bit wild. We have some money and we like to throw it around, and we just we change things whenever we want. So that really went well with a guy like former 18 Alpha coming in, and us just going willy nilly and changing everything all at once. If you can imagine. So but like Kevin, if memory serves, your success rate to go back a little bit. Just because you have a beret doesn't mean you're a human performance expert, right? One of the things that we're good at is running selection courses, which is basically what we were running when you were there. And the Air Force being the little brothers of everybody in SOCOM, we have a little bit of a chip, and so we make things as hard as they can be, and whoever survives, and otherwise it doesn't matter. But like, can you talk about how you changed the training when you had that super high success rate at the apprentice course for combat controllers, which at the time was one of the more difficult courses for Whiteside SOF in the DoD at the time?
Yeah, it was dismal. I think the pass rate was 18 or 19% when I got there. And this, Mike, this is using a little another context too. So for the combat controllers, for people out there that didn't know, and this is how it used to go, they would go to, basic training, which is fine. Then they would come over to Lackland side. They do a 2-week selection course, which is fine. Okay, you do the selection course. It was 2 weeks. And then they go down to Keesler and do ATC for 6 months. And then they would come, I don't know how long, is it 4 or 6 months, whatever it is.
3 to 4 months for ATC, yeah.
Okay. And then they would come back to me, right, and get ready. Well, no, they would come back to Lackland, and then they would go to airborne school and free fall school. And then they would go to Fort Bragg to it was basically their final selection course, because they would get their shit pushed in there for what they called SIT, 72 hours of,
Stress inoculation training, because we couldn't call
Yes.
it Hell Week anymore or something else like that.
Right. So yes. So there a whole nother selection, and so these combat controllers, these trainees have been in training in the training pipeline for over a year. And then after the year, then they got all this training. Oh, and SEER school too. I forgot they got to go to SEER school too before they would go to Bragg. Another course. They got 3 courses done, and then they would go and do a whole nother selection at Bragg. And that pass rate at Bragg at that time was 19%.
Was there any, I got a
19.
question. Was there any oversight or supervision in a fitness program to sustain them throughout? Or is it just like, hey, you just do this, boom?
Yep. It was because I was the only human performance person that was at Lackland at the time. So they would go to Keesler, their cadre would just run them in the dirt. They would go to whatever course they would go to just get run in the dirt. Because
Man.
all cadres are all human performance experts, right? So these guys would just come back broke, right? I mean, just broke off. And so what I would do to them, and if I found out, how long they had before they were going to Bragg, I'd be like, okay, now this is the time to really slow these guys down, because if they made it this far, they can make it through anything. It's a year that they've been in the pipeline, right? So they already passed the runs, the rucks, the swims. They know how to bob. They know how to do everything. So I had to reel people back, be like, hey, just because they're here for 8 hours doesn't mean that they got to train for the full 8 hours. And I mean, I really, really had to pull them back, So when they got the Bragg, then they like, okay, game time. They're actually more ready than being all jacked up before they went to their final test. And so what Trent what he wants me to say is that I got the pass rate up to 66%.
Boom.
By the time I was done, when I had them, and I had them for a year straight. Before again, the Air Force came in and they took them away from me because they gave them to contractors, and then the pass rate dropped back down to shit again.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting looking back, right? So this is like the Titan Performance podcast, and human performance. I think it's a good illustration of, I've been in the same boat without the expertise, right? Where it's like, hey, I don't think more is always better, and we talk about the older guys and the limitations that you might have as you get older. But like, I think one of the hardest part for the people of the population that we all came from is telling people that it's time to pull back, and that this can't be, especially like the training pipelines, right? Whether you're going to the 18 series or to becoming a ranger, like you can't be given 100% every day. You have to have recovery time. You have to like strategize this stuff out. Like you'll find on the internet a lot of these dudes that maybe did like a single, and it's much love to these dudes, but if you do like a single enlistment, and their advice to you is like, you give 100% every day, brother, and like you just go hard. It's like, maybe, we have 60 something years of experience sitting here right now on this podcast. Maybe if you listen to some of the advice that you're hearing here, it's a little bit better of a strategy to get after this stuff, whether you're an old guy or you're thinking about joining one of these selections.
Yeah. That's a good point. It definitely is, man. You can't listen to all the Navy SEALs out there, because like 99.999% of the Navy SEALs did like one enlistment, never deployed, and they're trying to tell you how to be an expert at performance. So yeah, there's a lot more to it than that, and like especially, and here's another aspect of it, a lot of people don't realize, and we talked to one of my Ranger buddies about this. But then, how do you endure through a 20 some odd year or 30-year career in the military, and you're still hanging with the 18-year-old soft dudes? That's the challenge right there, and you can do it. I mean, I was able to do it all the way to the end of my career, but it's hard, and you have to train properly to do that.
Yeah, Kevin, obviously you were even a civilian on the other side, and you're still leading out runs and doing all that other stuff. Like, how do you maintain that throughout the entire time? I think one of the key things is through the like educational piece and being humble enough to take in new information, but also from the physical training portion.
Yeah, so when I was there, Trent, I was going to every course that I possibly could, because again, Air Force did have a lot of money at the time, Mike, and so I would just ask to go to do something, and I learned I learned the Wim Hof technique. Right, they flew me up to Vancouver to do that for a 3-day seminar, and I came back and I helped the PJs, when it used to be NDOC, to pass their final NDOC PT test by improving their breath work on push-ups. I had like about 25 guys that would come to me, that came to me when the indoc was going on, just to learn this little trick that little tidbit that I picked up on how to use breath work to pass a PT test. Because at indoc, it was an 11-week course. And at the end, they had to pass it with 70 push-ups in 2 minutes. And somebody that's 6'4" and higher, it was very hard for them to move that far. And they just were just oxygen deprived. So, I learned that little trick, helped out a bunch of PJs. I think you're, Herman, right? Wasn't it Major Herman at the time? He was a SR guy, wasn't he? Trent?
There is one. He was probably a
Yeah.
major around that time.
Yeah, he was. He was our mate. Well, he was at the 342nd. He wrote me a letter, and he was like, "Yeah, you're the only person to ever get these guys past the damn pass test." So
Yeah, I think
yeah,
he did
and
that right
it's just
before I
breath.
got there, right? Because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
missed out on that.
yeah. But you know what I mean. I tried to learn as much as I possibly could. Not only with the breath work, but the mobility work. I went to functional anatomy seminars, did all their courses, and that's where I got the full range of motion stuff. Then up at On It, when John Wolf, another strength coach that's up here in Austin, where he was at On It, it's no longer On It, but you know what I mean? You just start learning things and start incorporating it and finding things that were going to help the soldiers out. And that's what I always love to do, was to find out new stuff to help guys perform better.
Yeah.
Well, cool. What else? What else from your career would you like to talk about? We talked about a lot of the human performance stuff and all the stuff you did with the Air Force. Anything else that you'd like to talk about, like from your time in active duty, that you'd like to talk about?
Man, so Mike, I've taken you've never been in the Southeast Asia part of the world operating?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, really? In Thailand, Philippines?
Yeah, Thailand. Yep, and been to Japan, Korea, but Thailand mainly.
Yeah. And La Paris or?
No, we trained. We did a trip over there, training the Thai Special Forces dudes. We did like a month over there. It was pretty cool. And then they messed up and let us free for 24 hours, a whole ranger company in Pattaya Beach, Thailand. When it was like it was back then when it was like the #1 party spot on planet Earth. And they let us,
Yes,
like, dudes had broken collarbones. Dudes were wrecking like little motorbikes into the side of car doors and stuff like that. Man, it was out of control.
That should have required some MDMP right there before they made
yeah,
that.
that should have. Yeah, especially a bunch of Rangers. I can't let them guys loose.
Yeah, no joke.
So I got. So I was a first group guy, so I got a lot of time, and I speak Thai as well. So a lot of time in Thailand and the Philippines. Was fortunate enough to go to Nepal 2 different times. Did the Nepalese mountaineering course in 2003. And then in 2011, I got to take my team when I was a detachment commander, go over to Everest Base Camp, which was pretty fucking cool. We weren't going up to the top. We had 10 days to go up and down, which usually is supposed to take people 14 days. That was probably one of the coolest J sets that I ever did, to doing that. Training the Nepalese guys. We even had I wasn't there, but ODA was actually there. A couple of ODAs were there when that earthquake, the big one, hit Kathmandu. And so they were, to help guys out. And so, yeah, I'm a first group guy. Love the area. Love, being in Southeast Asia. Didn't have to deal with any of the sand guys that, most of you guys had to deal with.
Yeah. I imagine that was different. I mean, you had to have done it still. Did you get out before the GWAT hit its peak? No, you got out, not too long ago? You got out a little before me.
2014.
Okay, so you went overseas and messed with those dudes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I was during OEFP, Operation Enduring Freedom Philippines. The only glorified war story I got is I was part of a guy that we got a number 5 HVT in Holo. I got
and that was in the
Filipino
Philippines.
Yeah.
Nice. Can you tell us a little bit about that? That's very interesting because I remember hearing about that at the time. And, for me, the war was Iraq and Afghanistan, and we were dabbling in Pakistan and places like that as well. But then I heard, I was like, man, there's some SF dudes doing some stuff in Thailand. I'm like, what the heck is, or not in the
In the
Philippines. I'm
Philippines.
like, what the
Yeah.
heck is going on in the Philippines? Like, there's war going on over there. I had no clue, and I've talked to dudes, but I've never gotten any legitimate stories out of anybody from it. So curious as to what you have.
So operation, it was on this. It's the southern archipelago of the Philippines. You know, there's a slew of islands that go all the way down to Indonesia, and as you know, Indonesia's, I think, the most populous Muslim population in the world. And so they had Abu Sayyaf was operating in Basilan and Holo, and I was AOB EXO for Alpha Company in 2010. 2000 November January 2011. In October, before we were going over, we did our PDSS, and two first groups, Jack and Chris, ran over a double stack mine, and we were, and then a couple months later, we were going to Holo to that area. You know, they had a whole battalion formation out there because they did the transfer of bodies from one plane to another. So we had our whole battalion out there at Kadena. So that was a pretty humbling experience because, you're thinking you're going to the Philippines, and, all rest of the military is thinking like, oh, you guys are going to the Philippines. Woo! You know what I mean? But, people actually got killed. Besides that, in 2010 and 2002, there was an aircraft went down, and we lost a couple guys on that as well. So, whenever there's war going on and bullets flying, people can die. So in October, so we ripped out the battalion in Holo, and we did operation to go after Rajalan Saharan Rajalan Saharan was the number two. Al Beta Parad was the guy that we got him and seven of his cronies that I was part of the task force, and we were fortunate enough to roll up on them. The funny thing about it is, though, 30 days prior, we did the operation, and it was one of those things. It's like, they went in and they did the operation, and it was a dry hole. And then 30 days later, they're like, hey, we're going to rinse and repeat this operation. And I was like, and I mean, it's like, hey, why don't we, this infill thing that you guys are doing, I'm sure when we come out this front gate and they see 30 Humvees going down to the same way, I bet they already know that they're going to go there. So I was like, hey, why not, like 24 hours, why don't you have the assault force take a boat around to the southern side of the island and then come up from the north? And that's what they did. And we got them. And one of the craziest things is that Jack's. I got to meet his parents, his mom and dad, and his sister. She joined the Air Force as well. That's how I met them when they were getting done with basic. And I told them the story. You know what I mean? I was like, the guys that killed them, I believe, were one of the 8 people that actually put that double stack. We actually got them. You know what I mean? And hopefully that gave them some retribution, relief. You know what I mean? That the people that actually killed their son that we got.
Nice.
And I don't say that much. This is probably the only first time I think I ever said that on a podcast. That we got, the guys that killed Chris and Jack, we got 8 of them.
Well, a lot of people don't realize, and that's a good testament to it that you just portrayed there, is sometimes you have to think outside the box. Actually, a lot of times you have to think outside the box because the enemy it's a human as well. And they can see and they can plan and they understand what you're doing. They watch and they pay attention as well. And you were aware of that, and you guys took a boat and it led to success. I think a lot of people just, don't understand how often that has to happen. You have to be a thinking man to be fighting war. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they never, we had the little Ravens,
Yep.
drone things up there. So they would have fucking kites, like kites, massive. I mean, way up in there, more higher than you would ever have a kite flying. But they would have them all up just to try to get a drone.
Wow, dude! Because those Pumas, or like which one did you say? The Raven. That was the first one, and then we had those Pumas. I think after that, and those suckers could loiter like 10 grand, like back.
Right. Yeah.
That's crazy high to have a kite like way the heck up there, thousands and thousands and thousands of feet.
They had them things up to 1,000, about 1,200 feet, man. They were up there.
Golly.
So kids, these are drones that they're talking about that we actually had to throw to get
Yes,
them
but
airborne,
we had a
and they
little
were
launch. They had a
large.
yeah. We had a
Yeah.
team they had this little launcher thing. There's a bunch of civilians with us on our base. That oh, and
For
then
the
one team that we
shadow.
did have, yeah. So we had the medical side, the Air Force. What's that specialty team? The Air Force
The
med.
sauce tea.
Yeah, the sauce. We had a sauce T team on our AOB, and that's where I met Rick too. Rick Mallow was there as a controller, and he got kicked out of the out of Holo. I didn't know that until later. And I was like, I know this motherfucker. You know what I mean? Because he became an instructor
Yeah.
at Lackland, and I was like, man, I know you. And he's like, oh, I don't think so. I was like, no. Where were you at? And he said he was in the Philippines. I blinded. I was like, and then he's like, I got kicked out. I was like, how the hell did you get kicked out? And he's like, oh, this army captain that was a pilot kicked me out. And I was like, motherfucker, you should have came to me. I was second in charge. You'd have never got kicked out. I wanted my combat controller with me. I didn't give a shit about that Air Force. I mean that Army helicopter fucking pilot. He couldn't do shit for me. You know what I mean? Besides bring aircraft to me. I wanted a controller with me. So
Yeah.
yeah, me and Mallow became pretty good friends. Rick's a good guy.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool though that Mike. One thing also is that like another gentleman, his name is RZ. He was at battle when I got there, and he was on the team. And we lost a guy from 111 in Afghanistan, and that combat controller was on that same team when we lost him. Jeremy Border was his name. You know what I mean? So it's cool to run into controllers that you actually work with that the different services. And that was one thing that was unique about being in my job when I was there at Lackland.
Yeah, the Air Force guys kind of make it all over the place. So since we go out as like onesies, twosies, it's we cover a lot of ground. So if you get a group of us together, there's a good chance that we've run into a fair number of the teams out there, especially the ODAs in like Afghanistan, where we're spread all around. Okay, I do have to make a joke. You guys had the launcher for the Ravens because I've seen Green Berets try to play sports, and there was no way those guys were actually going to be able to throw that thing to get it out. Anyway, so Kevin, you've done all this stuff. You have enough certifications to fill up like my entire house if you printed them all out and put them on the walls. And then you must have seen a gap or something because if you look at the sign behind you, it's 18 Alpha Fitness. What was the impetus? What was the reasoning behind starting this company, and what were you going to do that was different than everybody else that was going to lead to more success?
Well, so I wanted to show people that actually breath work to regulate your heart rate and your mind and body works. Mobility, if you actually do it, you can relieve a bunch of pain. And then if you actually do it right, it actually helps performance. And the rest of the workout stuff is easy, in my opinion. Working out is the easy part. It's the recovery that's the hardest thing for people to do, to understand the importance of breath work and understand the importance of mobility. I think that's harder because putting in work is easy. And anybody, and as you can see, there's all kinds of people that program now for soft selection stuff. That's easy. It's the recovery aspect of it that is hard for people to program, and actually for the time wise as well.
Yeah, I think it's hard. Again, the type of person that wants to get into these silly jobs, right? Like you don't want to think about recovery. It's all about go, go, go. And unless that shows up on your thing with a guy with your kinds of credentials to be like, no, and the way that you talk to people, like, in a very direct way, you got to do this. And this is going to make you more successful. And I just as a story, I remember one time I went into you for like something with my back that was messing up, right? And you went in there and you loosened up all my, it's not even something I thought about, but like your entire body's connected. So like while I was with you, I learned a bunch of stuff, but you worked on my back, and then I went to go bench. And I remember that was one of the best bench sessions I had in forever because I wasn't fighting my own body to get that weight up off my chest. You know what I mean? Like it didn't even occur to me that I was like limiting my own potential and muscle, whatever growth potential, because I was fighting myself just to get through that range of motion. And those are the kinds of things that, like, if you listen to people like Kevin, I think that are really beneficial because it does lead to that increase of performance, especially if you're plateauing or you're having all these other problems. The type of performance that you're going to need to get through these types of selection courses and pipelines. Right, Kev? Is that
Yep.
is that
Yep.
good? Did I
You got that, Trent. Yep.
I don't know if you
And you
guys
can
can
see
tell. I'm
Mike.
scared of Kevin. Okay, so like I'm going to say as many nice things as I possibly can because we live in the same town. I know how good he is at jits. I know you don't like compete anymore, but like I'm terrified of this man. So like I'm trying to be as nice as possible.
Yeah, Mike. So I've been wrestling since I was 9, and I was putting this into perspective. In 2 years, that will be a half a century. You know what I'm saying? That I've been on the mats, and I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So yeah, I would love the day for somebody to test it now. It's been a long time. And then again, I told you I grew up on the south side of Chicago, so I've had a couple of fights before in my life. So it would be fun experience.
Speaking of Chicago and fighting, before we end this, we're at an hour, but before we end this, did you ever meet a guy named Chris Peters who teaches Vanguard Tactical Fighting Systems there? It's an amazing course. I went through like all the different levels of it up there.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that?
No, nope.
Man, he's in
I'm a,
Chicago. He was. Oh, go ahead.
I'm a Greg Thompson guy. You know what I mean? I was, if you know who Greg Thompson is, he wrote the Stock P manual.
Oh, okay. I've heard
Yeah.
of that. Well, I've heard of the Sock P thing, but no, this guy was like one of the guys. Like the Ranger Regiment has its own combatives program, always has. Or it was one of the first in the Army to start it up. So we did all that stuff too, and they sent us tons of fighting courses. But one of the best ones that I went to was in Chicago. It was called Vanguard Tactical Fighting Systems. An amazing course. The dude's name was Chris Peters. At the time, he was in his mid to late 50s. Medium height guy, just fit as he could be. Just looked completely unassuming, just like someone's dad. But this dude would break you in like seconds with his hand. I mean, like lethal. Like he could kill you with his hands and literally like lethal shots. So he taught us lethal strikes and lethal takedowns and
Right.
stuff, all to like. It was all based around tactical stuff. We'd go in with a rifle and a pistol, and dudes would ball us up and pin our rifle to our chest up in the corner, and we'd have to come out with a knife and stab them or fight out of it and stuff like that. But it was a really good course. I went to multiple levels of it all the way through the instructor development portion of it. But I was curious, you being from Chicago, if you'd ever heard of it.
No, never heard of it. Nope. But yeah, I'm pretty deadly with the long gun with the poke to the forehead, boy. Ain't nothing like that.
Yeah, and like talk about
Ain't nothing like a jab. Ain't nothing like a jab with that motherfucker on your dome.
And speaking of that, the older I get, I'm probably not gonna grapple with someone. I always carry a
Right.
pistol, so I'm gonna poke holes in them with lead.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things about getting a little bit older is it's like you might be a little bit harder to provoke, but these are the guys you don't want to poke. You poke the bear, they're going to go straight to the end game. You don't have the kind of energy to you don't want to fight. You want to end the fight. So like for all you out there, I am on the podcast right now with two guys that scare me in a very real way. So also don't poke that bear if you ever meet them. Kevin, I got to say it. As we wrap up here, there are not that many dudes that I met in my career that we're able to gain that mentorship and that knowledge and to reframe certain things and to learn so much from as yourself. And I know you like it when I say nice things about you in public, so that's why I'm doing it. Please don't come to my house and rip my arms off. But dude, you did a huge amount of you did the Green Beret thing, and then you helped out the Air Force, and I know the guys, everybody that's ever worked with you or met you, they're better for it, and so that's why we wanted to bring you on the Titan Performance Podcast to talk a little bit about that and highlight your company and all that other stuff. So, dude, appreciate it and everything that you've done.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it. Nice meeting you too, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, brother. Good talking to you. Good to get to know you.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin, we might have to have you back on so we can just talk a little more smack at some other time if I survive this situation. But for everybody else out there, make sure you head over to TitanPerformance.com and check us out. And then head over to 18 Alpha Fitness. Is the Alpha spelled out or is it 18A Fitness?
Just
Kevin?
an A. It's an 18A.
Yeah, so when we talk about it, there's Alpha, Bravos, Deltas, all that other stuff. It's a military thing if you're not familiar. So go to 18A Fitness. Check out what Kevin's got going over there. Like we said, recovery, mobility, all that stuff is an increase in performance, and Kevin's going to walk you through all that, and I can tell you from personal experience that stuff works. And other than that, we will catch y'all next week, and appreciate you tuning in. Later, y'all.